Hello, everybody. Welcome, class. Remember when your teacher used to address you as a class? In that case, she was referring to a group of students, but the noun class has other meanings. I'm Menopause Taylor. This is the state of menopause in the world today. And today we're going to talk about something called class labeling. This is another broadcast that addresses a practical matter that will affect your management of menopause. You see, if you are listening to my broadcasts as they come out one at a time in order, I think you're probably realizing that there's so much more to menopause management than you ever imagined. And many of the things you need to know are not going to be in any book. If you have even a minute interest in the mere possibility of ever using any kind of hormonal product for any aspect of your menopause, whether it's pharmaceutical, compounded, bioidentical, non-bioidentical, or over-the-counter, you need to listen to this broadcast because I'm going to reveal facts that will really have you scratching your head. You see, my goal is to give you all the nitty-gritty background information that no one else is going to tell you. I like you to know all the ins and outs of everything that can affect your ability to manage your menopause your way. And nobody provides an education like this but me. So let's start this discussion on class labeling by defining the word class. A class is a group of things that constitute a group because of their common features. For purposes of our topic today, the class will be hormonal medications. So all the hormones for menopause belong to this class, all of them. So then, what is class labeling? Class labeling is when all the drugs in the class have the same information about risks on their labels. It's really simple. If the drug is a hormone, it has to have a warning about the risks of hormones on its label, regardless of what kind of hormone it is. So what are the risks of hormonal medications? Well, they're the same risks of the hormones that were originally in your body. Heart disease, stroke, blood clots, and cancer, all the same. Did you ever stop to think about the risks your own hormones carry in your own body? Do you know what the biggest risk of all is? It's pregnancy. Pregnancy carries the highest risk a woman will ever face. So all hormones have some risk. But risk is a possibility, not an inevitability. Risk is something you take every day. Even when you get in your car to drive somewhere, you take a risk. And class labeling uses a simple principle in requiring that all hormone medications be labeled identically with regard to these risks. Now, some people refer to these warnings as black box warnings. They are all the things that could happen no matter how slight the risk. But the problem with class labeling or black box warnings is that they are terms and practices unique to the FDA or Food and Drug Administration. So class labeling is something that only the FDA does. And only the FDA puts black box warnings on drugs. So let me play out a common scenario for you. Let's say you go to your doctor to address your menopause management. You tell the doctor that you have severe symptoms of menopause and that you want HRT. And you add that you're at high risk for osteoporosis, so you want to make sure you have a high enough dosage to meet the requirements of the estrogen window of opportunity to prevent that too. Your doctor carefully reviews your medical history, your weight, sees that you're a non-smoker, and decides that your risks for HRT are minimal, she tells you that HRT will be more beneficial than risky for you, and she gives you a prescription. You skip off to the pharmacy, fill the prescription, and feel absolutely victorious. But then you get home, you open the package, and you find a huge insert that is folded over and over and over and over again, and you start opening it up and you see it's practically an encyclopedia of risks, and it says that this medication can cause heart disease, stroke, blood clots, and cancer. You're shocked. You think, why didn't my doctor tell me this? You feel betrayed. You decide not to take the HRT after all, and you go and tell all your girlfriends that your doctor tried to kill you. Here's what really happened. Knowing about these possible risks associated with all hormones, your doctor assessed your personal risks and determined that your personal risks for these things is very low. The name of the game with menopause is to tailor all the facts to you. It's a balancing act. You have to weigh the benefits against the risks. The FDA puts this black box warning on all drugs that fall into the class of hormones. It doesn't matter what brand or what dosage or what type of hormone or what form, whether it's a pill, patch, cream, etc. It doesn't matter about any of that. And get this, it doesn't even matter if that particular product has absolutely none of those risks. So the FDA is essentially going overboard. They're erring on the side of exaggerating the risks rather than minimizing the risks. Menopause specialists are very frustrated with this class labeling and black box warning requirement. It's gotten out of hand and it has become overkill, if you will. Do you remember back when I taught you that vaginal estrogen creams do not travel throughout your body, but instead they stay confined to your vagina? And that because they don't circulate throughout your body, they do not provide any of the benefits of the estrogen window in preventing diseases associated with menopause. Well, estrogen vaginal creams have none of the risks of the class labeling or black box warnings. They do not and cannot cause heart disease, stroke, blood clots, or cancer. All they do is alleviate your vaginal dryness. Because they carry none of these risks, you wouldn't expect them to have a label or a black box warning alarming you about these risks, now would you? But guess what? They're part of the class of drugs that are hormones. So even though they have none of these risks, they have all those same warnings. And when you get them home and you open the package, you find that same huge pamphlet that's like an encyclopedia telling you about all these dangers. It's misleading and it scares you. This black box warning requirement began in 2003. 1 year after the findings of the Women's Health Initiative study were revealed. That was when everyone was in a frenzy over hormones, even though the reports were misrepresented. 10 years later, in 2013, when enough reevaluation had been done to realize that the risks were not as originally reported from the WHI, the menopause experts approached the FDA to get those warnings revised. In particular, they wanted the warning to be removed from estrogen vaginal creams that carry none of those risks. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Well, to this day, the FDA has refused to budge on it. So if you get any kind of estrogen vaginal cream, it will still have all those warnings to scare you to death, even though they are absolutely inaccurate. So with the FDA, it's overkill. Okay, but let's contrast that with compounded HRT. Do you recall when I've talked about bioidentical hormones? You've learned that many of the pharmaceutical HRT products are actually bioidentical. So all the bioidentical HRT products that are made by a pharmaceutical company are approved by the FDA. And that means they all carry these black box warnings because they fall into the class of drugs that are hormones. But what about when you get your HRT from a compounding pharmacy? With compounded hormones, you get essentially the same hormones, but you don't get any of the literature. No pamphlet, nothing to scare you, no list of risks, no black box warnings, nothing. Does that mean they're safer? Does that mean they have none of the risks of the pharmaceutical HRT? No, they have all the same risks. The difference is that they're regulated by a different industry with completely different standards. Compounded hormones are not approved by the FDA. They only have to adhere to the regulatory standards for foods. So you have nothing to scare you. But you also have nothing to divulge the possible risks. They can still cause heart disease, stroke, blood clots, and cancer. But there's no regulatory requirement for the makers of compounded hormones to tell you that. So you have two completely different industries with two completely different sets of standards. The FDA goes overboard and labels all hormones so harshly that it scares you to death, and the compounding industry is silent and provides no warnings at all, making you assume there's no harm. So which is better? Which one appeals more to you? You see, I believe that they should both just have to tell the truth. The truth is always the best option. If you received the truth, you would know that all hormones, whether produced by your own body, a pharmaceutical company, or a compounding pharmacy, have risks. You'd also know that for the vast majority of women, the benefits of hormones greatly outweigh the risks. You would know that the risks exist only for those hormones that circulate throughout your body. And you'd know that those are the only ones that can prevent any of the diseases associated with menopause. And you would know that estrogens designed specifically for vaginal dryness only, that do not circulate throughout your body, do not carry these risks. That is the truth. And if all hormone products were required to divulge the truth, we'd all be better off. Understanding the significant difference between the two industries is critical to your menopause management. Which you prefer is entirely up to you, but not knowing the difference is just plain unfair. And that is the state of affairs for most women with regard to their knowledge about these industries. Most women don't know the differences. Most women are shooting in the dark. Most women are listening to their friends. They're listening to misinformation. They have misconceptions, and they are very impulsively reactive to everything rather than getting more information and making logical, rational decisions. They just kind of react impulsively to everything. I do one-on-one consultations with women all over the world. They're very, very popular. I do a lot of them. And I encounter this phenomenon so commonly where women basically are afraid of really the wrong thing.